I have lived in Los Angeles now for 15 years, which is kind of nuts. That's the longest I've ever lived anywhere, which I'm going to get into in a little bit here. But 10 of those years were spent in Santa Monica. My wife, Chelsea, and I now live in the Valley, which is everyone's first choice in LA. I was a pastor in Santa Monica for almost a decade, and then the only story, I burned out. I'm an alcoholic, and went to rehab around Santa Monica. Got familiar with a different side of that city, which is actually incredible. I don't know if y'all know this, but like the west side of Los Angeles and Malibu included is like the hub of all rehabs. There are more rehabs per capita in that space than there are in the entire country. When you drive down Malibu and you're like, who lives there? It's a rehab. Like that's what's happening when you're going through there. And I found that out as I was going to all these rehabs and sober livings and all these things. And I got sober over there, and the recovery community as a result is just insane. Like on the west side, we don't have, if I could, I would live on the east side of Los Angeles. The food is better, there's more arts, there's more things to do. The west side has a bunch of strip malls, and then honestly, like sober people who just want to spend time at the beach staring out into oblivion. But the one thing we do have on the west side that is just simply better, and I'm sorry, this is the one place I can brag about the west side, is that the recovery meetings on the west side are like world class. Like you cannot find anything like them almost anywhere else. You're in a space where any meeting you walk into, you have no idea who you're gonna encounter, but you're gonna encounter people from all over the world, from all over Los Angeles, from every single type of distinct socioeconomic class. Everyone in there, the guy who just got out of prison to like the billionaire living in Malibu that had to come slightly down the hill to get some help, right? Everyone is in that same room and in that same space. And that's where I started. So I got kind of like spoiled in those environments. And as a result, like we've been living in Woodland Hills, and I've been driving through Topanga. I work in Santa Monica and I work full time in these treatment centers and stuff. But I've been driving over for my recovery meetings too. So like that's like extra after work. I will drive from Santa Monica to Woodland Hills, and then I'll have dinner with my family and put my daughter to bed, and then I'll drive back over that hill. But since the fires, most of those meetings, the Palisades was this really unique, and this is something the Palisades almost never gets any credit for. The combination between West Los Angeles and all of those treatment centers in Malibu all convoluted in the Palisades. So there were more meetings in the Palisades than there were anywhere else on the west side, which means anywhere else than Los Angeles. So when that fire happened, the recovery community took a huge, huge hit. All of these entrenched meetings. There was a Friday night meeting at 7:30. It's called Friday Night Live. And there are literally 500 people that show up to this thing. It was huge. It was nothing else was like it. You could walk in and it felt like this buzzy like experience, and you see people from all walks of life and all that stuff. And I'm not supposed to be saying any of this, by the way, but who cares? You walk in and you see all these people, and that all went away when those fires happened. Alcoholics are extremely quick to pivot, and so we found other places. We were really good at that. And so there's a bunch of stuff going on now. Like, and if you come to me and you're interested in any of those meetings, I'd be happy to tell you where they've moved and all that good stuff. And they have, but it's not the same. And especially biased for me going through Topanga. Topanga is no longer a thing, so I can't drive through there down PCH to get to those meetings. So I've been driving into Santa Monica, like there and back, doing the 101, 405. Total in the car, I'm spending about 4 hours a day, which is insane. But it's honestly, it's something I kind of have to do, otherwise bad things are gonna happen to me. So I'm fine to do the traffic, and I'm fine to be involved in that community. But Chelsea, my wife, has been pushing me, saying like, you should really find some like valley meetings. And this is where I realize that I'm a complete and utter snob. Because I'm like, I can't go in there, right? Like, what am I gonna do in there? What's gonna happen in there? Who am I gonna see? Who do I know? There's no one there, right? And I went to a couple when we first moved there, and I was like, wrong exit, not for me, right? I didn't like it that much, and it's pure snobbery, right? Anyway. My wife could tell that I needed to get to a meeting and could tell that I needed to find some local community. And so she's like, look, there's this lady in my mom group. They run a meeting in their backyard. Go check it out. And I was having an insane week, like just when you work in the treatment environment, you hold a lot of heavy stuff. And it's all heavy stuff that you've kind of walked through yourself, so you're constantly sitting there going like, oh man, do I know that? And then like by the end of the day, it's like you carry this huge 50,000-pound weight out of the room, and you have to find a way to drop that thing because you can't bring it with you. So I was having this week, and it was awful. I had a friend that died. I had a bunch of other people around me that were in this disease, and they had relapsed, and I was scared. And so I was like, I'll do anything. Yes, I'll go to this meeting. And I was like, it better not be a Pacific group meeting. I've given a lot of inside baseball stuff. I didn't realize I was going to do this. A Pacific group meeting. If you ever go to a meeting and you walk in and the speaker is wearing a suit, promptly leave that meeting. The Pacific group is like the fundamentalists of Alcoholics Anonymous. So this exists in every sort of spiritual sphere. There's always fundamentalism. It always finds a way into the equation. And these people, if you show up and you get a sponsor in that environment, you're working for them in some cases. You're cleaning their lawn if you mess up or if you don't do something. They treat the big book like the Bible. It's a bunch of weird stuff, right? And I'm not into it. So I was like, as long as it's not that. And I walk into this backyard and everyone's wearing a suit. And I go, oh no, right? But I'm stuck. There's 11 people there. It's very biblical. I'm the 12th. We walk in. And I look around and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I realize everyone's waving at me and I'm like, there's no, like, could I just leave? And I was like, that's too awkward. I can't just like walk out the back gate. I'm in here. We're all around a fire. We begin telling stories. I'm not going to go into that part because that is anonymous, but we're going through and as it comes around to me, I'm able to share. I'm able to talk about that friend. I'm able to talk about everything that's going on. And I feel that 50,000-pound weight begin to drop off. And I go, oh my God, it can happen here too, right? That no level of snobbery can keep God from working, you know? And this morning, we're talking about Jonah. Corey and I are doing like a little 2-part series on the book of Jonah. And I think the book of Jonah, if you're familiar with it at all, is all about that kind of religious snobbery, that these people over here have nothing to offer me, but these people over here deserve everything. And there's a change of heart, there's a change of mind in Jonah. And Corey talked a lot about that last week. So if you want to, there's I was going to say podcast. I don't think there's a podcast. There's a YouTube video about that, and you can watch that. But that change of heart is radical, and then the shift, and then he goes to this really interesting place. Just a really, really brief 2-minute recap. Jonah is a prophet. He gets called to go to this place called Nineveh. These are like people that are absolutely not like him. Like Nineveh in kind of biblical history and all that good stuff, like these are the people that invented the cross. They invented that method of killing people. They were absolutely brutal. Like when they would execute people, when they would take over towns and villages, it was an absolute mess. So they were the type of people, they're like, they're so evil. How could I ever go have something good to say about them? And so he runs and he pulls away and he tries to go as far west. Nineveh is east, and he tries to go as far west as he can to Tarshish, which is like in biblical terms, it's like the end of the world. Like he's trying to get as far away from them as he possibly can. In the midst of that, God takes him. We all know the VeggieTales version of this. The whale swallows him, takes him down into the bottom of the ocean, and he experiences a spiritual transformation. That's what really happens there. I think that the fundamental piece for me in this story is that whether it's a substance or a person or anything, we're all addicted in our own way. And for Jonah, this was really an addiction to his own way of thinking, which is fundamentally what I think we all struggle with. I am addicted to my worldview, the way I think things should be. And if anything threatens that, I'm going to go a little haywire, right? And in this story, Jonah has both a change of heart, and he goes and he talks to these people, and then he has another change of heart back to his other fundamentalism and says, like, never mind, I don't think these people deserve it at all, right? So there's this very human element of this story where it's not a clean-cut bows on this, and Jonah just walks away this changed man. In fact, at the end of Jonah, we're looking at a kind of a toddler moment where he's staring at the thing with this self-made roof, and he's cursing God. He's like having an argument with God, right? And I just think that's so honest. It's beautiful that is in the story. The VeggieTales version of this does not end that way, which I think is really a tragedy. That like we can go to these places of great healing, we can go to these places of great openness, and then if we're not careful, if we're not doing the work, if we're not practicing, that we can go right back to our previous behavior. That if we're not practicing our new identity and who we are in this new version of God that we're experiencing or of life that we're experiencing, the default is to fall back into old patterns. Back, I would say, into an addiction of your way of thinking. What I want to look at is the transformation moment, though, where Jonah really talks about his shift. And that's here in Jonah 2, 1-6. So follow along with me. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said, "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me from the deep." So it's really interesting. Jonah's 4 chapters long. The word deep, depth, descent, all that stuff happens 13 times within these 4 chapters. So it's a theme that runs throughout everything, that God is taking Jonah vertically down, 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 down. From the deep, in the realm of the dead, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. You hurled me into the depths, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled around me. All of your waves and breakers swept over me. And I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again towards your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me. The deep, again, deep surrounded me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head, very deep. To the roots of the mountains, poetically deep. I sank down. The earth beneath barred me in forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. This is one of the only spaces in Jonah where we have any language of up. That God, you brought my life up from that pit. And the way that the ancient people understood the earth, what we're talking about is that fish going even lower than the sea level, the bars of the earth. That means like they believed that the earth was this dome that had water above it, water below it, and then beneath was Hades. It was like this idea of like Sheol, of hell, right? Our modern version of hell is not what they thought, right? They were looking at this very different space of just death, of separation, right? And Jonah is saying, God brought me even further down than that, and then brought me back up. It's this moment of holy understanding that when we reach the bottom, the roots of ourselves, we have such a broader view of life. That coming up, and I love that, you brought me up from the pit, doesn't mean he brought him up to the top of that mountain. All that's mentioned is the roots of the mountain. It just means he brought me this far up. That any up is awesome in that scenario. So really, like, this is a book about distance and how we measure distance and which way we're looking. And this is all vertical. There's a Christian Wyman quote where he says that happiness is a horizontal feeling and joy is a vertical feeling. That there are 2 ways we can measure the world, on the surface and then in the deep, right? And what Jonah was trying to do is he was trying to escape over the surface and get to a place that was far, far away. And God was like, no, I want to switch that, and I want to take you down to the deep. What Jonah was doing in my community is referred to as a geographic. This means that if your addiction takes over and everything around you is bad, like the solution to this can't possibly be that I need to get help or like get sober or do any of that stuff. It needs to be that I need to like move to a new town, like, which is an insane idea. That like everything else could be the problem. Like you are the only piece of that is not the issue. It is my entire environment, the entire city that I'm in, my friends, everything around me, that's the problem. And I need to go somewhere new. And once I'm there, everything's gonna change because it's just everything else that's the issue, right? And I'm highly used to pulling a geographic in my life. I grew up in a family that did this. My dad was a missionary and a pastor, and so we grew up moving all over the place. I'm going to run it down really quick for you. I was born in Texas. We moved to South Carolina. Then we moved to Sacramento. Then we moved to Amsterdam. Then we moved to Pennsylvania. Then we moved to New York. Then we moved to New Jersey. Then we moved to San Francisco, and that was all before I turned 14. So it was just boom, 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 all over the place. And every like 2 or 3 years, and this is just raw and real, if something would go wrong in my dad's church, he'd be like, it's everyone else's fault, we're moving to Amsterdam. And I'd find myself in a totally new environment, right? I'm really grateful now for that upbringing. It has created this like, this beautiful reality in my life that wherever I am, I really feel like Los Angeles is an expression of that. Like I feel so at home in this city because there are so many people from all over the world that are here. And it's so fun to ask the question, like, where are you from? Like I've traveled outside of LA recently, and I was like talking with people and making small talk, and I realized like the question, "Where are you from?" really wasn't that interesting because everyone was from that place in the room, right? But here, we're able to ask that, and it unlocks like all of these different stories, right? Oh, I'm from here, and this is my culture, and this is what I'm bringing to the table here in Los Angeles, and it's beautiful. Um, my parents' home is like an homage to moving around so much. They have a condo in Marina Del Rey now. They live here. And my brother was staying with them the other week, and he was sending me all these pictures of like, why is all this stuff here? Like one hallway looks like their time in Texas, and then another room is like we've now entered like the Amsterdam room, and then there's like little things. There's a cabinet that they bought in New York that they never want to get rid of because it reminds them of New York and of my mom's family. But it's like 3 inches too long for this wall that it's on, so it kind of like hangs over here. And inside of it, it's got this glass, and inside of it is a nativity scene that my mom put out at Christmas like 7 years ago, but they lost the key to get into it, so it's just there constantly. Like if you walk in, it's always the nativity in the back corner. And there's no getting rid of that, right? So it's this reminder of all the places that I've gone and I lived. And so when I sort of came of age, I graduated high school. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was playing music at that point. I went to my cousin's wedding in Augusta, Georgia. And I met a girl at this wedding. And this girl was like an evangelical Christian. I'd never experienced that in my entire life. I'd grown up in Christianity, but we were moving to these places where like I was like the only Christian in my school. So it was like very appealing to me to be like, oh my gosh, this person is like a Christian, like they go to church, all that. So naturally, as a like pre-alcoholic, I dropped everything and I moved to Augusta, Georgia right after high school to go live with my aunt and uncle. And as a part of that, my uncle is this wild man. I called my dad this week because I call for permission to talk about anyone, and I talked about my dad a little bit, and so I'm talking about my uncle, and I was like, can you give me some like Uncle Jackie stories that would really show like how wild he was? And he goes, well, it's really tough to like understate it or overstate. Like the guy was a maniac. And I was like, okay, this man was a Southern Baptist preacher who would walk up with absolutely no notes and no plan. So he would walk up onto the stage and he would talk for an hour and 15 minutes. Some of you are like, are we in for that today? No. I did not inherit that down the line. But he would go and he would talk and he would talk and he would talk and then he would call on someone, they would say something and then he would talk and he would talk and he would talk. And he had that kind of personality kind of everywhere he went. I got pulled over with him once with a cop. I was in the back seat, and he was like, listen, officer, I'm on my way to church right now, and this is an emergency. We were in the South, and the guy was like, go. And he was going like 90 miles an hour before. He was like, doesn't matter, go, get to church. He would ask for the discount everywhere we went. That was part of his shtick. And I remember one time, like if we were at a restaurant, he'd be like, can we get the discount? And they'd be like, what do you mean? And then they'd leave and come back and we'd get some kind of a discount. Like he just had this like way of doing that. I was at the movies with him once and he left. He's like, I'm gonna get the discount. And I was like, what does that mean in this context? And then he comes back and he has a garbage bag of popcorn, like an entire bag. He had gone to them and he asked them, hey, could I get the discount? And they're like, what do you mean? And he went, the discount. And he goes, give me 1 second. And the guy comes back with a garbage bag of popcorn that they were about to throw away for the day. And we had a garbage bag of popcorn, right? He was this incredible human being. When I lived with them in Augusta, he took in 4 different people from the community that lived in his home with my aunt, my cousin, who was still young at the time, and myself. All 4 of those people are still instrumentally involved in that family's life. Like he was just this larger than life guy. It was just pure love, Last summer, I got a call, and it was really wild. My wife's grandfather had passed away earlier that day. We were in Vermont visiting some family, and I was walking her through that. She was really close with her grandfather. And then I got a call from my dad, and he said, hey, Uncle Jackie has passed away. And Uncle Jackie had been suffering with dementia, but we thought he had a lot more time. And Uncle Jackie was really like more of a grandfather to me than anything else, and like a really close figure in my life. It hit me super, super hard. My dad's like, they're actually going to do the funeral in like 3 days, because I guess that's like I don't know, maybe it's a Southern Baptist, I have no idea, maybe it's a resurrection thing, no clue, but 3 days is a lot of time, or a short amount of time to plan to get from one end of the country to the other. And I was like, I don't care. I'll do whatever. Like, I'll make it there, whatever needs to happen. And we went. And when I say that he would talk for an hour and 15 minutes, I'm not saying he's talking to like a huge group of people for an hour and 15 minutes. Like, this man had a church that was a very small church on the side of the road in Augusta as you're driving into where the Masters are. And that shift is drastic. Like, it looks like poverty and then the Masters. And he had a small little Baptist church across the way. And when I got there, I expected, okay, well, we'll go to Dayspring, which was this church, and they'd asked me to play a song at the funeral, which I had to learn in like 3 days, and it was a Beatles song with all these weird changes, and I didn't appreciate that much, but we figured it out, and we got there, and I thought we were walking into Dayspring, and my dad was like, no, it's at this other church. It's called Warren Baptist Church. And I was like, Warren? Because I had lived there, and I knew what that was. It's the biggest church in town. It's like this huge mega church that has like an aquatic center and a basketball court. Like, it's massive. And he's like, yeah, I guess like that's the only place that all the people will fit. And I went, oh my God. And we got there, and this room that's like a stadium is filled with people. Filled with people. And I thought about that, and I thought about it in the way that like I moved around my entire life. Uncle Jackie had lived in Augusta, Georgia his entire existence. There was never much outside of that. And the roots that this man had built in his life didn't mean people were showing up to his church, but it meant the love, the person that he was, attracted all of these people when he passed. And I thought about that, the difference between like a mountaintop moment and how Uncle Jackie didn't really get to see that mountaintop moment, but the roots of that mountain, like Jonah was talking about, the roots, that's where he spent his entire life. That in our lives, very often, we don't get to see the huge, sparkly, big, awesome, look at it, like movie moment. But most of our life is spent on the roots of that mountain, building the foundation of our lives. And after that, the weirdest thing happened to me. I just mentioned my friend passed away. I had 5 people close to me pass away last year. It was a hell of a year. Most of those people were people that I loved so dearly and were deeply rooted in who they were. They were the type of people, like my Uncle Jackie, that were just so at home, and I'll call it their world. Have you ever met someone like this? It's like when you meet them, they can name every plant in their backyard. Like they know everyone's name at the grocery store. They just have this natural ability to make the world that's around them their own, and they are truly living in it. They are not a guest in the world. They're like a host. And it really made me think as I was sitting through these spaces, like, I got sober 4 years ago. I have a 2-year-old daughter. My life looks a lot different than it looked when I was at that roots moment. But like now, what am I measuring my life by? Because these people made the world their own. They knew these names, they knew these people, they knew their life so intimately well that each one of these, and this is rare, each one of these felt like a celebration rather than devastation. That we could all look at life and go like, they nailed it, right? And so it made me think, am I measuring my life on the surface? Or could I take a page out of this book and start measuring my life vertically? And start looking for depth more than surface things. Stop getting so caught up in what success looks like or what other people measure me by, which really matters, like not at all. But what do I care about? What do I want to feel deeply? And as I was getting set to preach about this and speak about this weekend, my wife Chelsea and my daughter went up to Sacramento to go visit my sister and her 2 little kids, which is wild. My sister's closer to my sister than I am. I'm like, that's your friend. I'm not going up there. They hang out, and my daughter is like playing with her cousin who's a year older than her, and they're having like the time of their lives, and I keep getting all these like pictures and updates. And they're gone, and so I have like all this space and time. So not only was I able to write this, but like I went to the gym for the first time in forever. Like I ate healthy. Like I was like, I am so much better when they are not around. Anyway, I had just all this richness and then all these photos and realizing how much I love them and how much I love my life right now. And I got to play at my friend David's show on Friday, which is amazing. Like, if you guys haven't been to that, that's church. Like, you sit there and you really realize, like, that's a different expression of beautiful, beautiful, honest spirituality. I got to do that, and then I got to preach this morning. And I have a free afternoon where I have absolutely nothing. That does not mean I'm hanging with any of y'all. I have a free afternoon. I'm just going to go home and sleep, right? It's a gift. It's a joy, and that's a vertical joy and not a horizontal happiness. So we're going to get back into those groups, and you're going to ask this question and discuss it a little bit. How are you measuring?